Hi, welcome. This is Steve Gilmore, and this is the Gilmore Gang. We're joined today, starting to my extreme right and his extreme left, the first gentleman from the British Isles, and that would be Keith Teare. Welcome, Keith.
From the extreme left.
Yeah, whatever the hell that is these days, right?
There is no such thing, yeah.
Exactly. Also from the British Isles. Are you an American, or are you
I'm actually American, if you mean me.
Yeah, and
Me.
Kevin Marks.
Hi there.
Yeah, are you an American, or are you...
I'm an Englishman.
There you go.
I'm a British citizen too.
Proudly.
Well, I just haven't got around to changing yet.
And Robert Scoble, are you an American?
No.
Welcome.
I'm from the NSA. I'm here to spy on you.
He's a Borg, it's obvious.
I'm in the Borg.
That's right.
Part of the Borg army. Obama's army.
Everything about the head is actually mechanical. The only thing that's real is that Google Glass thing.
Yeah.
Right? If you take that off, the whole head comes off.
By the way, Robert, not to compete or anything, but look what I got given yesterday.
Yeah, excellent. Given you didn't have to pay $1,500 for yours.
Me? I'm famous. I don't pay.
I'm famous. And they made me pay.
Of course I paid. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know you did.
All right, so I guess we're pretty much wrapped up here since nothing has happened since... When did the Google Glass ship?
2 months ago.
Right.
Well, it hasn't shipped.
Okay, so since I already know what you're going to say, I'm going to start with Kevin Marks. What's going on? Anything?
What's going on? Well, not a huge amount is going on at the moment. I mean, the NSA stuff continues. The British are tapping their fiber optic cables for the Americans and vice versa. I'm heading off this weekend to Indie Web Camp up in Portland, which is why I may dash out soon because I've got a taxi on the way, which is trying to build independent websites that interoperate. So going back to the idea of actually having our own websites and connecting things together, and can we do that in a standardized way? And it is, basically a group of people who are building their own websites and not fully working out whether we can scale these to lots of people yet. But that's it's the community that a lot of these sites came out of. If you think about sites like Tumblr, they started out as these independent websites like this. So it's trying to keep that tradition going.
For those of us like myself that don't really recall this website thing you're talking about, could you explain what a website is?
Everything is a website now. A website is where you put stuff up on the internet and connect it with a browser. And the point is that at the moment, people have decided to concentrate their personal information, their publication, all the stuff they do through a few big sites like Facebook and Twitter and some of the blogging sites like Tumblr and so on. And this is trying to say, well, let's make sure that we haven't lost the ability for these things to connect together.
I see.
Like the joys of blogging 10 years ago, or 12 years ago, whenever it was.
Okay, Robert, what's going on?
Instagram video. Other than that, it's been
That wasn't really much.
not too much. Xbox reneged on or pulled back some of its policies because of public pressure.
That was pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I like it at one level because they are pretty clueless about PR and stuff like that. But I find it troubling because they weren't able to explain why they were doing that stuff. And some of it was actually legitimate, like having an Xbox always on the internet. Duh. I want to play games against everybody else. But
of course, but if you want to do that, then you would plug it into the internet. But they were saying if you unplug it from the internet, you can't play games on your own anymore, which was pretty crazy. So it was. I think what they set up was the classic DRM story that there's been. The teams at Microsoft have been pushing on us for at least 20 years. And they said, aha, finally we can do this because everyone actually wants to play games with each other. They'll take this as well. And the pushback pointed out to them this isn't really so. And also Sony basically stepped up and said, okay, whatever they just said, we're doing the opposite, and anyone can run games on our platform now. So suddenly Microsoft, when Microsoft brought out 360, that was part of the pitch was anyone can build games for this. You can get an SDK. We're Microsoft. We're good at software development. That was their raison d'etre. And now they're dominant. They're trying very hard to pull back from that. And Sony have gone to make the journey in the opposite direction. So that piece, the fact that they've backed down on that's interesting. But they still haven't. It's still not as easy to get independently developed games onto this new Xbox, is it?
Yeah,
that's the piece that's still tricky.
I find it hard to get all that wrapped up in games, but there's a lot of people who do. So.
My kids play FIFA 2013 all the time. 3 boys, they play with each other, and if they had to be online to play with each other in the room, that would be stupid. And I think Microsoft did the right thing by pulling back, but it's shocking they didn't start there. I mean, it's weird.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, Google does the exact opposite, which is that everything is connected. I mean, what's wrong with having somebody in the same room being connected through the internet? I'm not sure I understand that.
You just don't need it. I mean, and why are they doing it? They're really doing it for tracking your attention so they can start targeting you, which, isn't really why you buy an Xbox.
I disagree. I think that's the only reason to buy an Xbox is to be tracked.
Yeah, you see, I'm on the other side of that. I think tracking is what you do when you can't think of anything more intelligent.
Well, explain.
I don't. There's a piece of it. Remembering my Microsoft culture from 8 years ago, there's a piece of it that they're probably trying to think about how to target you with advertising and all that, and track you and understand who you are and stuff like that. But the modern world of games is you play against people, and so I bet there's a big piece of their intention was just, hey, we're going to build a device that's always going to be connected, and that's a given. And if you can promise that to game developers that they're always going to be connected, then you start thinking about a whole different world as a game developer. So I can see some evil that they're trying to do here and some good, and it's disappointing they gave up on that, partly because they just poorly explained it. They're really crappy at explaining new technology to the world.
Well, I mean, but the point is they said, okay, it's a simplifying assumption, sure, but the goal is clearly that they want everyone to be attached all the time, and the fact that people have other use cases and they hadn't considered them is a problem. And there was a sort of warning for this.
There's lots of products that are coming out. This Google Glass, if you don't connect it to your phone and connect it to the internet, it simply doesn't work. If you start with the assumption that a device is always going to be connected, it changes the device.
Sure, right, and that makes sense. If you're saying our predicate is this thing is always connected, but what they're saying with the Xbox is this thing that we're used to using in one particular way is no longer be usable in that way, then that's much more problematic. And to address Keith's point, I think you can use, I mean, and
partly that's their problem of not explaining that this is a completely different platform, and explain it doesn't run old games. So right there, it's not the same as your Xbox 360,
Right.
So to address Keith's point, you were saying, Kevin?
Oh, so Keith's point is you would still use, the internet is a sort of fuzzy concept. You would still use internet protocols to talk to people in the same room. And that was the thing that Nintendo did enormously successfully, where they replaced you used to have crossover cables to connect the things together, and they put Wi-Fi into all their little handsets. And they put Zero Conf in there so they could find people nearby and you could play games with them.
Well,
and
there's Wi-Fi.
That was hugely useful for that use case. But it doesn't mean they had to actually have a backbone connection to get there.
Right, Kevin's exactly right. There's Wi-Fi Direct on Android, and Apple last week showed AirDrop working within a confined space between devices that were on the same network. It's the same thing. Wi-Fi Direct basically is underneath it. So you can get networks without needing to be tracked. That's possible. And tracking is a separate subject, but tracking basically is trying to guess what somebody is interested in by looking at what they do. And you can see with retargeting that it's a very poor. It just doesn't work. And it's unlikely to ever work. And the better thing is to get consumers to declare interests.
But I'm just not sure that I agree with, sort of framing, the the always on, always connected to the internet as a tracking mechanism. I mean, sure, it's a tracking mechanism. Everything on the internet is being tracked. I mean, that's how the internet works, is it goes machine to machine.
Actually, I'm using the wrong word. I really mean targeting when I'm saying tracked. I'm using the wrong word.
But I mean, if you're right,
the other thing
if
is
you're
that
right,
the new
let me
Xbox
just
is not. Is
let me
not
just ask
a
the
game
one
machine,
question. Let me just
Steve.
ask the one question, which is, if you're right that targeting doesn't work, then what are we worried about? Now that I've said that, go ahead, Robert.
No, the new Xbox is not just a game machine. It's really a system to control your TV, and therefore it's going to compete with the Apple TV, and which is always connected. The Apple TV doesn't work if you don't have it always connected,
True.
right? And it's competing with Google TV, and it's also going to have a permanently mounted Kinect sensor looking at you, and so you can interact with it and do things. And the fact that if you assume it's always going to be connected, now you can do a whole bunch of scenarios like, oh, let's make Netflix work really well, or Hulu, or YouTube, or whatever video thing is going to come on.
I think you're right, Robert, but to me it reminds me a little bit like the mistake that Friendster made and why it ultimately failed, when it had some preferences to do with what the etiquette was on Friendster, but instead of suggesting them, it imposed them. And by imposing them, it pissed people off. And so people left Friendster. And there's a lot of examples of people doing that. Path's the same with its 150 limit on friends. I mean, in practice, if you've got less than 150 friends, you don't need to be told that you can only have 150 friends.
I think it should be 10, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Microsoft's mistake is imposing a reality that probably would happen anyway, and crossing over the line of etiquette and upsetting everyone, when in reality 99% of all those Xboxes are going to be connected all the time anyway, so they didn't need to bother.
Euro in the chat room said that's not why Friendster failed. I sort of agree with him that there's a lot more.
Sure, yeah.
I don't
Friendster
think any
failed,
of those networks
That
failed.
wasn't.
I don't think MySpace failed. I think that they all were blown away by Facebook and sometimes
Well,
Twitter.
Friendster did fail because of that design choice, and that meant that they couldn't actually cope with anyone that had lots of friends, and then they did blow up and die because of that. And then they had a bad time trying to re-engineer it, and they didn't get it done in time. So that was part of it. So they became very sort of slow and unable to scale. Yeah. So they mostly died from lack of scale.
I think they mostly died from lack of oxygen from Facebook taking everything.
But it didn't help. It didn't help that they pissed off all their early users by telling them how to behave.
Yeah. I mean, they ended up with a whole bunch of users in Southeast Asia because they got a second wave after they'd actually fixed all their bugs, but all the original people had moved on.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else is there to talk about this week?
You know, I think the Instagram stuff is more than Kevin, made it out to be. There's some interesting headlines, about Facebook having run out of ideas and now just copying, which on the face of it is true in this particular case, but isn't really true in general. And it does look as if Facebook and Twitter are starting to go head-to-head more. And Snapchat is kind of the more interesting case. And Snapchat is now bigger than Instagram, significantly bigger. And it's, what really is under the surface there is that this web company, Facebook, which is trying to contain everything inside its walls, which acquired the biggest photo sharing app, now discovers that there's an even bigger photo sharing app, and it's on mobile too, and that can't go on. They can't keep swallowing up successful mobile plays and not be successful themselves on mobile. And I think that's really what is the big story.
I think it's deeper than that. I sort of wrote about it on Facebook. The Facebook is looking really tired. It's losing credibility with the press because it announces stuff and it still hasn't shipped what it announced at the last press conference 2 months ago. My wife still doesn't have the new news feed, and so I'm getting to the place where I don't even go to their press conferences anymore because I really don't they don't announce anything really all that interesting for me to justify half a day away from my screens. And maybe they will someday, but the last 4 press conferences have been really lightweight on news. If any other company did this to us, we would be like yelling and screaming. It's just, Facebook has 1 billion people, so.
And what's worse is they hyped it. They said they made it sound as if it was going to be some amazing thing. If they'd have said we've got a little announcement and just put out a press release, no one would have cared.
Right. They're doing their best at PR, and they're doing okay, but I think they're losing trust with the press and with the influencers and the people who cover it.
Well, I mean, there is something in making video easy to use. That's a good thing. But I'm not sure how much you gain by what they've done. I think it probably is a better app than Vine from what I played with it, but it still ain't as powerful as the YouTube app that's been out for 18 months. But it's trying to do something different. It may or may not work, but to the sort of this is an amazing new thing for sharing moments in your life type presentation was kind of odd.
Well, if you get down to the bottom of it, it's an animated GIF that you can create, putting together some frames. How irritating is that to look at, and how long is that going to be a big feature? Similar to Snapchat, I mean, there's some merit in being able to delete something just after it's been read, but it is just a feature. And I mean, it reminds me of the music business, where you get this one-hit record. I remember this friend of mine did this song, Talking Japanese, If You Please. They never had another song that anyone ever heard of, but they did that song. And then many years later, you kind of remember it, but no one listens to it anymore. It feels like that's what is fascinating for Facebook. They're buying features that take off instead of just building the feature.
The problem is this is the problem. This is Google Plus, and it looks beautiful with big pictures that are variable sizes and multi-column layout. And this is Facebook's new design, which my wife doesn't even have yet. And my wife's page is far uglier than this one is. And they're just they're not innovating anymore the way that they used to. And they have this hacker culture. Well, okay, great, but you're not even shipping the feature you announced 2 months ago. That's not a hacker culture anymore.
Yeah, I said I haven't got Facebook search, yeah.
Yeah, and that was announced 3 months ago, right? People still haven't gotten the features they announced 2 press conferences ago. That's not a hacker culture anymore. So there's a culture breakdown. Something's going wrong inside Facebook on the hacker culture. And then we also need a design culture. Apple's taught us this, right? And Google is getting on board with design and doing beautiful stuff. And Google is shipping design, and Facebook's not. So there's something broken inside Facebook's culture. Now it doesn't matter this month or next month or the month after. It's not a short-term problem. But if this continues and they don't fix that culture, they are going to see a massive move to other things. Snapchat is a little taste, but Snapchat's not really threatening to Facebook. So
no, but WhatsApp is.
No, even WhatsApp. None of these are really directly change my Facebook behavior.
No, but there are a lot of people. They are gathering critical mass and having network effects.
Right, and it's dangerous to let that continue and not be innovating and taking some of the oxygen away from new things.
But that was what they tried with Poke. Poke was trying to catch up with Snapchat, and that was like vanished. Completely straight away. This is integrated to Instagram, which already has a sort of pattern of people using it, so I can see that it's a little augmentation of that. But the use case is different from Snapchat. I'm not sure they're really competing. One's for publication, one's performative, and one's direct messaging.
Well, no, because Facebook does all three. I mean, Facebook is for public pronouncements, for shared messages, and if you look at Google Plus, they've even got private notes with Google Keep. So to me, there's like the Evernote thing, there's the SMS text IM thing, there's the email thing, and then there's the public post thing. Facebook and Google are trying to do all of them. These other guys are just doing one really well, but they're bound to evolve towards doing more than one as they become successful.
Robert, I think you're locked up. So
call me back.
I will. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. By the way, I think we've got 2 chats going on Friend Feed right now. One's falling into disuse, I guess, so it's probably okay. So I was just making the point that Facebook and Google are containers for all three human behaviors: private, shared, and public. Whereas WhatsApp is just doing IM type stuff. Snapchat is just doing photo sharing mainly with deletion. Vine and Instagram are both doing GIF, animated GIF stuff. But ultimately, the winners, and you saw this with Apple last week when they announced the changes to PhotoStream, with events and memories and conversations and multiple participants to an event, that everything is converging around messaging and social networking all being features of a common thing.
Right. And that's, the challenge is building that common thing in a way that actually interoperates, which is, I suppose the point of, at the moment you have to do a lot of point integrations, and there's it's actually very difficult for these companies to integrate with each other anymore because they keep shutting each other down.
Yeah.
You can't actually post the Instagram videos onto Twitter because Twitter's not, Instagram's done all the previews and they've gone back and forth on that. So it is problematic, and that is the challenge. But I agree with you that these things are all manifestations of the same kind of thing, and that's I suppose that's the point of this indie web camp idea, is that we think we can codify some of this stuff and make it actually interoperate again. But we're starting from the other end, saying, okay, let's build this so that it interoperates from the first place, rather than trying to do it on the terms of these companies that can cut you off at any time. That's tricky.
Right, exactly right. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. The other thing I thought was interesting is the trailer to the Ashton Kutcher Steve Jobs movie came out today. Did you see that?
I didn't.
It actually doesn't look bad. I'm shocked how I thought it was going to totally suck, and the trailer makes it look like it might be half decent, which totally surprises me. I don't know if Steve's seen it because he would probably care about this somewhat.
No, I don't actually, but I'm just trying to get Robert back, so just bear with me.
I'll have a look for that. My cab has just arrived, so I've got to disappear off now. So
I'll talk to myself. Don't worry.
You can give us a nice disquisition on.
So Keith, how are things going? Well.
Bye everyone.
Bye, Kevin.
See you next week.
Bye. Okay, well, I can talk to you while I attempt to...
I noticed in the chat, Robert says he's calling Newsgang 3.
Yeah, tell him to call Newsgang 4.
Okay. Call NG4. Okay, I told him.
Okay, well, we'll have him back in about 10 seconds.
Good.
It's a theory.
There he is. I can see him, an incoming call there. I'm actually running Skype on OS X Mavericks here, and it works. I've got Mavericks and I've got iOS 7 running, just because I have to try the latest stuff.
And how is that going for you?
It's a bit of a struggle to get used to iOS 7, just because it's so different. But once you get used to it, it's fine. And it's neither better nor worse, I don't think, visually. It's just different, but it's fine. Technically, it's a lot improved. There's a lot to like about it technically, like the Safari page tabs. I think they've messed up with the links thing that goes along with Reader in Safari. It's too many links that you don't care about flow through it, and their reading style is to go through it page by page. So you can't easily skip to stuff you're interested in. So there's a lot of issues with that particular feature, but in general it's really good. FaceTime now does audio calls. That's great. What else is new? Well, PhotoStream is, I guess, is the biggest social thing that's new, with this theme of everything converging, where messaging and social are kind of all contained within the OS ultimately, and there's some kind of point of integration. Well, Apple's point of integration is a new tab called Today, which I guess is going to evolve into their version of Now. and so they separated the notification center into today, all, and missed. And I think today is going to become now, and they've even got a bit about tomorrow. Like the bottom of today, you get tomorrow. So that's got to be in their mind to evolve that into a now competitor. And I think all of these features are looking for a point of integration. To me, Facebook Home, Google Now, and whatever Apple evolves are all trying to converge messaging, public statements, and private reminders and memories into some converged UI.
I'm back.
Hey, Robert. Could you listen?
Technology.
Could you listen while you were off, or were you blind?
No, I was dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
Kevin is literally not with us anymore. He's not dead, though.
Skype.
So, Steve, I
I
hope
think
I kept...
Microsoft heard us talking bad shit about Xbox and they cut us off.
So, while you were not on, I gave my little... I'm using Mavericks here, and I'm using iOS 7 on my phone, which I'm pleased to say just me doesn't crash on. I thought it might, but it doesn't.
My son has it on his phone, and he has at least 4 apps that he can instantly crash just by touching a button. But
Yeah, I have some of those as well, but not my app, I'm glad to say. I don't know why. We're not that clever. I think we just are lucky. But so what do you think of iOS 7, Robert? Have you seen it?
yeah, I played with it. My son likes it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Everything.me on Android just blows the shit out of Apple's new OS.
So have you seen the Today feature on the notification screen of iOS 7? I think that's their Google Now competitor starting to be made.
Yep, they're moving into the contextual space,
Yeah.
like we predicted.
So
6 months ago.
they've got today, tomorrow, and the past, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think our first instincts were right though. It's not nobody's going to quit Apple because of it, and nobody's going to buy an iPhone because of it. So I think the marketing, the market share numbers and the profit numbers and everything stays the same as it is.
I thought the jokes were good at the WWDC, like when, I don't know if it was Eddie Q or someone said, we totally ran out of green felt for the game center, so we had to look for something else. Or we totally ran out of bookshelves, so we had to look for something else to justify the end of that skeuomorphic stuff.
Yeah, Kevin asked, when did I finally change my opinion about iOS and Android? It's been a continuing all year long conversation here on Gilmore Gang. It's but I'm now actually loving Android, which I didn't for two or 3 months. It was hard.
Yeah, I'm definitely not there yet. I agree with you about the so what to do with iOS 7's look. I don't really care. I could take either. I thought the old one was fine. I think this is fine. But I somehow prefer the Apple ecosystem and how everything integrates together. I just got HBO Go on my Apple TV. I just got Watch ESPN on my Apple TV. I love AirPlay. It just seems that if you're in an Apple world, everything works lovely together. And Google hasn't quite got there yet. You just can't. You just can't do it.
Android still bites you once in a while. The other day, I was trying to make a phone call, and the dialer just wasn't working, and or it didn't work immediately. It was sort of like Skype right now, and it bites you once in a while and pisses you off. And Apple just rarely bit me like that.
Right. So I've got in my house. I've got Glass now. I've got Apple. I've got Google TV. I've got a Nexus 7, a Nexus 4, and a Nexus 10. And I try really hard to make all that, and I've got a Pixel as well, the touchscreen, high-res touchscreen thing they gave me.
Yeah, I got one of those too.
Right. I mean, it's like you've got 4 totally separate platforms that don't even know each other exist.
By the way,
apart from the cloud, they all know the Google Cloud exists, but none of them know each other exists.
The Pixel is a good example. It's a beautiful machine. It's an interesting idea, but it keeps biting me. The touchpad still sucks on Android, on Chromebook devices for some reason. I don't understand that. If you're going to bring a new device to the market, you better make it not bite me that way. It's disappointing because I actually am interested in using a Chromebook full time and switching my life over to it, but it keeps biting me. The touchpad just is not fast enough and accurate enough. It's not an Apple touchpad.
But so now you see both companies are sufficiently proprietary. I think Apple wins on the ecosystem. But the things that really appeal to me more and more, actually, even though Kevin, if he was here, would probably disagree because they're proprietary, is these horizontal proprietary platforms that go across, like Dropbox.
Yeah.
I think anyone who could successfully build a horizontal platform, whether it's for messaging, storage, video, almost anything, which implies you've got to build in the cloud and then build native clients to access that cloud. I think that wins above Google and Apple, unless Google's better than this Apple. They put all their apps on iOS.
Right.
So you can at least use Google Plus and other stuff on iOS. Apple doesn't do it the other way around. So if any of your friends don't have Apple, you're stuffed. So their ecosystem works well if it's self-contained, but very poorly for those who don't have it.
And I think that's a switch in strategy for a lot of startups. Aaron Levie, who runs Box.net, said he would love it if market share broke out evenly among iPhone, Android, Windows Phone, and BlackBerry, because he's going to build an app or a system that goes across all of the platforms, and he knows that Google is not really going to like to do that, and Apple certainly is not going to do that. So Apple becomes a non-competitor to him because he's going to support all the platforms.
Unless Apple could be persuaded that, you see, I think Apple is locked into a world that wants to sell hardware and understands the importance of software to do that, and believes that if they support Android, let's say, for some of their apps, it would lead to a decline in hardware sales. I don't think that's right. I think it would lead to an acceleration of hardware sales. I think what iTunes did on Windows points the way to Apple's growth. And so I would definitely do iMessage cross-platform because Google does not have an iMessage competitor. I don't know if there's much else I'd do at this stage. Maybe PhotoStream, but I definitely do iMessage.
Well, Google does have an iMessage. It's called Hangouts. There's an app on Android now called Hangouts. Now, is it any good? That's another question. But they are trying to compete.
I think it's awesome, but it doesn't do text very well to non-Hangout. It doesn't let you, like even at Just Me, we can publish to text and email recipients. Google could at least do that. Then I think you're right. Then it would work because it wouldn't require the receiver to have Hangouts. In the same way that iMessages doesn't require the receiver to have iMessage. It will use SMS.
I think you missed the new Hangouts app is not just video Hangouts. It does do text and it does do other things. But
it does, but only to other Hangouts recipients.
Right.
Well, this is why the web is gone and apps rule, is because in an app environment with push notifications, it doesn't matter about trying to bridge all these different platforms. It's just irrelevant.
I think that's probably right, Steve.
I think so. I just don't. I think it's it's basically on the border between fantasy and science fiction.
But
for there to be a bridging mechanism for this, it's just you're always going to be chasing your tail.
Yeah, but
just everybody is going to be chasing their tail.
There is still
Kevin in the chat room made a good point that he thinks BlackBerry can come in with a BBM app, and I know they're working on one. I hear I'll get it in the next couple weeks. I don't know. Are you going to switch my son, who is using an iPhone with his girlfriend? iMessage.
Dominate the chat by Kevin in the chat room says that BlackBerry can absolutely dominate. That's absurd. Nobody's going to dominate except Google and Apple. Microsoft can't get into this.
Yeah, I do think there's still an issue, Steve, despite agreeing with what you said about notifications and alerts, meaning you don't need to directly integrate between apps. I agree with that.
It's not that you don't need to, it's that it is not going to happen.
or it's not going to happen. I even agree with that. But it still leaves a problem, which is for any given user loading any kind of messaging app on any kind of device, they need to ask the question, if I want to send a message to Steve, what apps is Steve running that will allow him to get it? And the only universal correct answers are email and SMS. Because you can't know if you've got WhatsApp or iMessage or iMessage does a decent job because it falls back to SMS.
That's just not true. If you want to get to me, if you're on Twitter and you have a reciprocal, you send a direct message.
No, I know that, but they have to know that. It isn't.
But what's wrong with that?
Well, it would be better.
I mean, why do we want to have this open thoroughfare? The problem with emails is that anybody can send anybody a message, and that's great. But better is that people have a way of orchestrating who can communicate with them.
I totally agree. So what you really need is that you and me agree we can message each other, and when I go into my address book and say Steve Gilmore, it just gets the message to you. I don't have to think about it because we've agreed to send messages to each other. Twitter does that. Facebook has an element of that. But they're all separate apps, and if you're only on Twitter and I'm on Facebook, I can't get that message to you other than through SMS. That's the only common binding layer.
I'm not sure I understand. If I have all these apps, they all are running on my iPhone and my iPad.
I don't know that. But how do I know that, the sender?
Well, I'm telling you and everybody who's watching the show. Thousands of people know this.
I'm not being literal. I mean, how does one know what the recipient is running?
How does one know what their friends are doing? Because they are consuming and publishing social media, and they learn.
But you're not denying that the reason we have things like SMTP and SMS is because you do need to have universal transports if you want to not have to think about it.
I'm beginning to think that that's old speak.
Maybe. I'm not sure about that.
To me, if people spent less time trying to bridge iMessage, as somebody in the chat room suggests, which isn't going to happen because there are at least two very large companies that don't want it to happen, and spend more time understanding that the characteristics. And we think that the web is, some protocol. It's a combination of HTML, it's a combination of UDP, it's a combination of all sorts of different protocols that have been built up and are orchestrated into an experience that feels like you're connected to everybody. But that is now being replaced, I believe, by an app universe, which is coexistent simultaneously on the two major platforms.
That I agree with you, but I'm also making the point that comes with its own issues. In the same way that Outlook was a unifier on Windows to some extent, there's going to be a unifier. It's going to be something. I don't know what it's going to be, but there will be a unifier because people don't want to have to think. And they do have to think in a world of messaging silos with no... and you're right that if I know you're on Skype, it will come in your notification center, and that solves it. But if I don't know you're on Skype, it won't. Because I won't send it on Skype.
It's going to come down to the characteristics of who the major leaders are that allow you to be able to communicate across. Email is fine. The only problem with email is that you spend 98% of your time filtering it to get rid of the noise.
Not anymore, Steve.
Yeah, I know, Robert.
In fact, what do I have? The new Gmail filter, social. I watch normal people use social stuff, like Snapchat and Facebook and all that, and they use a lot of them are using email to be the central place where they track everything.
I understand the email filtering. I'm not talking at the level of what are the tools to be able to cut down on spam. The fact is,
you're missing my point here. I'm showing you the social news folder where all of the LinkedIn and Spotify and and Twitter and Snapchat and Facebook messages come into in one stream in one place. So this is the central nervous system for a lot of people's social network.
It may well be, but my point is that I look at email as a problem, not as a solution. I look at Twitter direct messages currently, since I don't think there's anything else that is quite as good as it is, as a solution and not a problem. So it goes to the top of, just if you look at how I have my feeds arrayed, in my phone and on my iPad, it's Twitter first. Email is like third or fourth now because it is a overweighted, noisy channel that I prefer to ignore if I have better signal. If something comes into me in corporate email, I'll wait and see if it's got the same signal on Chatter directly, in which case I just open the Chatter client because it's so much cleaner and more efficient.
No, I think you're right. I think Steve's making some good points. Mutual opt-in is what really is at the core of Twitter. You can only DM someone who's followed you and you followed them.
That's correct.
And that creates a kind of a control mechanism, which is excellent. And I agree with that. And I think any private messaging client should do that. I also think that human beings sometimes want to communicate with people they don't know in public often, because that's the only way to do it. And so Twitter's regular stream is a kind of a getting to know you ahead of a mutual follow that then leads to a more intimate relationship. I think both of those are really important for discovery and then for control. And if you've got those two fundamentals, you're in a really good place. But unfortunately, Twitter is not as universal as, let's say, SMTP. So you can't take it for granted. There's a lot of effort.
Twitter's DM absolutely sucks.
Well, it's limited.
Sucks.
It's okay for getting someone's attention.
Yeah, okay. And it absolutely sucks for anything else.
Well, it isn't meant to do anything else, really. It's meant to be the hook to get their attention, then you move to whatever mechanism you want.
Back to email. My first answer is I always take everybody back to email because I can forward, I can CC, I can search, I can do so much other things.
Yeah, I think if you took a lot of that email functionality, Robert, and you put it into Mobile Notification Center, and I've noticed on Mavericks, for example, when a notification comes in from email, you can reply to it right there in the notification.
Absolutely.
That begins to get to the place Steve's describing,
I'm not criticizing what Robert is saying. I think it's accurate for the majority of users. What I'm talking about is something that I need to manage. I have so many notifications now that are coming in from all the major cloud networks that there is a new priority list that has emerged, and there are technologies, including iOS 7, which I think is a major upgrade in speaking to these issues for the reasons that Keith just mentioned. For example, the instant response in context. The faster, the more that you can push things into push notifications, the more targeted information, to misuse that expression and hopefully get it off of your mania about being tracked, the more valuable, actionable information you can communicate and interact with. And this is where social networks like Chatter, specifically Chatter for us at Salesforce, gives us this ability to be able to manage enormous amounts of private interchanges, in groups, which gives us something that takes my email usage down to a bare minimum, which is a great thing.
Just out of interest, Steve, do you know what the adoption is of Chatter vis-a-vis, say, Yammer or any of those other ones, like SharePoint and so on?
But I'm not going to promote the product here. I'm just telling you from a technology perspective how I use Chatter and how it is coming online for me as a it gives me the ability to process actionable information much more rapidly than email does, and as a result, it also provides the sharing model that's built into it and the security model that results from it gives us as we move into this bring your BYOD device world, it gives us the ability to be able to work fast and efficiently. I just had a problem with my MacBook Air, which is being fixed, and I'm literally running the whole show off of the Mini in terms of my communications. And I don't like doing that. I like to have the laptop around so that I can avoid using it, if you follow my logic. But at this point, we're rapidly moving to the place where these devices, these smaller tablet and phone devices, are sufficient for 95% of all the activity we have. Which brings up, Robert, have you looked at Office on iPhone?
No. I read all the reports and it sounds pretty good, but I really don't care.
Well, it sounds interesting in terms of how they're trying to figure out where to avoid cannibalizing various assets. That's what I find interesting about it. Keith, have you had any thoughts on that?
I don't really care about it. I did try iWork on iCloud. I've got a developer thing, so you can get it. And it's a fairly good rendition of Pages and Numbers and Keynote. I think the only one I would ever use is Keynote, and I'd have to be in a real bind where I couldn't use the real client to want to use the cloud version, just because I don't know why I would ever use it. But it's well done. And same with Office. I mean, Office to me, I use it when I only really use Excel on Office now. And I use it a lot because I have to, and I can't imagine why I would use a cloud version of Excel unless I had to. So to me, it's not
I
clear.
think more accurately, I do care because I'm writing my book in Microsoft Word, but where I do that kind of longer work is on a laptop with a keyboard, or maybe my iPad, and.
Right.
They don't have the iPad version for the Office yet because they know the minute they ship that, the Surface is dead. So
Surface is dead, evidently.
Yeah, So
that's the same lesson that Apple should learn, which is there are times when you should lead with software to increase your ecosystem, and really. Office should work on an iPad, and they can charge for it, probably more than Apple charges for the iWork suite, and it probably would not impact Surface sales at all. It would just make Microsoft a more relevant company.
So the reason that I brought it up is not because I expected either of you to actually really care about this, because I don't think you do, and I certainly don't, but because it illustrates, I think, the connection between what we were talking about as far as notifications. There's this new paradigm of how you get work done, and it has tipped over to mobile devices. And just on a percentage basis, the amount of time that we do our computing off of a laptop is now what? Robert, would you say 80% minimum, maybe 90% most of the days?
Yeah, I rarely carry my laptop anymore.
Right. So the desktop environment becomes, is being supplanted by a real-time messaging communications infrastructure that is being focused around these messaging layers, of which I would include Gmail as a messaging layer.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think, Steve, in terms of the enterprise? I'm going to guess that the Outlook use in the enterprise is still very high. I don't know that that's true because I haven't been an enterprise guy for a few years, but I'm going to guess it's still very high. You look at Chatter and Yammer and Convo that TechCrunch uses, which I think's really good, and you notice almost everything's happening on those platforms. You just wonder and by the way, a lot of those are still Web 2.0, you know, apps in a way. That mobile is just a client, you know, using Adobe Air or a browser sometimes to some kind of cloud thing. But you just wonder whether now is the time when somebody should step up on tablets and iPhone and try to reinvent the whole enterprise messaging experience, not from the cloud out, but from the device in.
What do you think, Robert?
I'm
Were you
sorry,
listening?
I missed that point.
Yeah, he's basically saying, is this the time when instead of working from the cloud out or in, you work from the device out? In other words, to reinvent communications and messaging, starting with, you know,
I
a
think
mobile
that's
device.
actually what's going on with Google Glass.
Mm-hmm.
I've radically changed my reading behavior because of Glass.
Describe it. How?
I was walking around New York with my son, and Danny Sullivan tweeted the hurricane in real time and put up a map. It showed up in my Glass. I retweeted that. Then I started talking to people that I was with and said, "Man, there's a huge hurricane tornado going on in Oklahoma City." 10 minutes later, I was on the subway and I met a lady who was crying. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "I just learned my house is probably gone." She lived in Oklahoma City and was on the subway. And because I have this real-time information stream, I was able to, to have a human relationship with her, and
When
and
James,
understand what was going on. And I was able to give her news that didn't turn out well for her, but at least I had more news than she had because I had the world telling me what was going on in the street.
when James Gandolfini died, it hit the Twitter in about 30 seconds. And there was a good half hour before any of the mainstream media even got to the story. As a result, it felt like just this kind of, the newspaper, the news networks, all of that stuff has been replaced by this kind of reactive authority model where somebody who you trust, like Danny Sullivan, who was all over the Boston bombings, for example, and becoming a curator of that stream, we're starting to see this kind of curation model occurring that is completely shifting. I mean, to my mind, Gandolfini was the guy that invented binge viewing, because that's what happened to Sopranos, is that it was the forerunner of the binge networks.
Yeah.
So, the impact of his death was profound. If you take a look at the New York Times, for example, there's in the arts section, there are 2 screens of stories about his death.
Yeah.
Because it impacts so many of the media channels and so many of the strategies around what's emerged out of this real-time kind of notification environment. So,
I want it all to tie together on all screens. Flipboard so far forces you to be on iPhone or iOS or Android, but this is a sneak peek into their web thinking. And you can read this in Flipboard on my iPad, or soon we're going to be able to come to Flipboard on the web. And look at the numbers already. In 6 weeks since Flipboard shipped this feature, I have 42,000 readers, 2 million page flips, and 2,000 articles already that I've handpicked and put into this magazine. So this is that kind of curation. I want it on my Glass, so if I see a headline come through from you or Danny or TechCrunch or whatever, I want to put it into Flipboard system just by touching it or talking to it, say forward to Flipboard or something like that.
right. So the logical outgrowth of that is, how do you tee up notifications, which goes to what Keith was talking about in terms of iOS 7. How do you tee up these notifications so that if you can stay in the context of the notification stream and reply, as iOS 7 does, it allows you to continue to stay at the front of that stream if you have adequate curation and filtering, bringing that stream into something that you can handle. And it's just a fact for me that email does not bend as successfully to that as the social signals of @mentions and the Twitter cloud, for example.
Well, Glass brings them all together. So, just in the past few minutes, I got a tweet from Alex Wilhelm, a tweet from Dave Weiner, a tweet from Laughing Squid, another tweet from Dave Weiner, and a missed call that I didn't accept, and then an email and other things. And it doesn't show me all my email because I can set a little bit of the filtering, what gets shown through to the Glass. So we're seeing the beginnings of really something interesting here, and I think that's going to be a major use case for Glass. But this won't come out for 8 more months.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of a number of different devices that.
Yep.
I think that the tipping point for Glass will be when it works on the iPhone.
Yep.
I mean, as soon as you can have
and that's coming
parity, right? I mean, the second that exists, I'll have it, because I think as a photography mechanism, it really has a quality of its own that's divorced from the number of pixels. I think they've 5 megapixels?
5 megapixels.
Yeah, so they've got a good sort of average, thing going on there in terms of the quality, but the perspective is fascinating.
Look what they're doing on the cloud. These are photos I shot this morning. I was down at Pescadero this morning, and I shot out my Glass. I shot it while driving, right, and shot pictures of the party last night.
Remind everybody to stay away. Give Robert a wide berth.
Yeah, you're on the internet. Now, keep in mind.
I'm just talking about,
This is my private feed, right? So you're seeing pictures that I see, only a very small percentage of which go to the public, right? But look at what they did. They hid 49 pictures from my other day, right? And why did they do that? Because they algorithmically picked the most interesting pictures to show me from that day, using a variety of techniques. And then they make the quality better. So let's go to, like, this picture is not all that great. Let me click on the original. And you can see that they made the color, the skin tone, the brightness automatically better, right? And then they did stuff like this, automatic GIF, because I took 5 pictures and it stitched them together into an automatic GIF. They call this automatic awesome or something like that. And I have a bunch of them, right? So here's a picture. Let me make it bigger. Here's a picture of a guy wearing an exoskeleton with sensors, right? And it turns it into an animated GIF automatically. It's pretty cool,
But
and same thing here with the sunset. The sunset was unbelievable the other day. Now, here's an example where I actually like the original a little bit better. And you can switch it back, right? So,
Robert,
yeah.
I'm having trouble hearing Keith. Keith, talk please without Robert. No, for some reason you're not. Your audio's not coming through. Something has changed. Okay, go ahead, Robert. Well,
anyways, I think this is going to be a trend next year, that Google is going to have a marketing campaign.
Okay, should be good now.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
And I'll let you in a second. That they're going to have an automatic world series of apps and a marketing campaign, and explain that no longer do we have settings and complexity. We just do stuff and it automatically gets better.
Mm-hmm.
So the point I was going to make is when I went to pick up my Glass on Tuesday, I took my iPhone with iOS 7 on it, and they paired the two using Bluetooth. And the only feature I don't get on the iPhone is turn-by-turn directions for driving and outbound messaging. I don't get those two, but everything else works. it's, still I think the problem with it is the form factor. I honestly think if you separated the display so that you didn't need to require the glasses, and you had the camera and the microphone kind of one on your person, and an earpiece that were kind of connected, and you could use any display in an AirPlay-like way for output, including one on your face if you preferred it. I think that separation of the elements retains all of the capture functionality, and it retains all of the publishing functionality, but you lose some of the reading functionality in real time. And Robert, you've focused mainly on the reading, how you're seeing everything, but I wonder how you're finding it for publishing.
It's great for photography and great for short emails. Like if I just want to say, Steve, I'll see you at 1:30, I can do an email or a text like that. I can send a text or send an email. It's great for making a photo and then sharing that photo. It's okay for making a tweet. Anything longer than that, I'm going to go back to my iPad or my Android phone.
Yeah, that's what I guessed.
Yeah.
But there's some innovation you could think of there. I mean, that's a good starting point for thinking.
The problem is voice recognition is close, but it's not good enough for formatted text. So if I want to say one sentence, it's pretty good. In fact, let me pull out my iPhone or my phone, and I'll show you what I'm seeing when I actually make a message. It's good for short stuff. It's not good for formatting, and it's not going to replace a professional photographer or anything like that. So, but I think people that think it is missing the point. So let's see if I can. Yeah. So, OK Glass. Sorry. OK Glass. See, a tweet just came in. That's sort of funny. And it screws with the OK Glass. OK Glass, send a message to Rocky Barbanica. Rocky Barbanica. Hey, Rocky, can you be at my house at 3 o'clock?
It got the words you used initially.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yeah, if I was a little bit more careful, it'd be a little bit more accurate. But notice it didn't put a question mark on the end. So I have to figure out now how to talk to it for punctuation, which is not always intuitive. And it's not always 100% accurate. It gets close enough.
I think
for messages.
I think most of our, we're able to filter out those things. I mean, I don't often put a question mark at the end of a question when I'm texting. I just there's an implicit question mark there. People understand that. The receiver can do some of the work.
And that's true when you're sending a text message to your kid or to my producer. It's not good enough for me to be public and waste a million people's time. When I put a piece of communication on Google Plus or Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, I want a little bit more care than this lets me put into it.
Yeah, I think that when there are mechanisms that work with @mentions, for example, and retweeting, where you just basically pivot off of whatever the existing content is, and then maybe add a couple of words, that's going to be valuable to people because they can also filter it so that they don't receive retweets or @mentions and can if they want them.
Yeah.
So
now retweeting is awesome here, right? Because I see a tweet and I just hit a button and it retweets it, or I can favorite it, or I can like it on Facebook. I can even, do rude tweets, but I would do it in an emergency. If I saw a building get blown up, I would absolutely use this to tweet out. But it would be, it would be rough.
Right.
all right. Well,
Anyways,
because of the said downtime of my MacBook Air, I'm running this off of the Mini, and I think that's why the stream is going up and down. on Ustream. So let's wrap this one up, starting with you, Keith.
Apple has the best ecosystem. Google has a lot of interesting devices that don't yet constitute an ecosystem. I think users are going to stick with Apple in the short term.
Robert?
Yeah. The world is not changing, and it's all changing.
And I'll summarize for the two of you by basically saying that it's going to be a combination of these two major players, and they're driving forward at a very rapid rate, and they're taking advantage right now of the fact that we have been unable to consume even the smallest part of the innovations over the last couple of years. So the users are starting to catch up, and it's going to be a good thing. I want to thank Rackspace, and particularly Rob Legess, without which this show would not have returned to whatever this is that we now call the air again. I want to thank NewTek and their TriCaster. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gilmore. And thanks to Kevin Marks. I hope we have him for a little bit longer next time. Thanks to Robert Scoble and Keith Tier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the chat room.
Yeah, as always. It's been great. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who continue to stay away in a timely manner. See you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.